Tractor thrones, do they suck? Everyone, my name is Brandon. I'm a drummer who specializes in biomechanics. I have a business called Strata, and I use exercise science and biomechanics every day for the last 20 years, helping people with big issues feel better. I work with a lot of professional drummers, professional athletes, and very sensitive demographics, and I have told many of you many times not to use a tractor throne. Gibraltar sent me this throne. I'm not sponsored. They're not giving me any money. They have no expectations for this video, but they sent me this throne saying, hey, check it out and let us know what you think. And I have to say, I still think a lot of tractor thrones are not great, but I will say this one has completely changed my mind and really opened up the possibility of potentially other thrones. Now quickly, there are a lot of different tractor thrones out there. I have not been able to try them all because frankly, I can't afford to, but I will tell you the criteria that I think about when it comes to finding a tractor throne that might be good for you. So just in case you're not familiar, through Drum Mechanics, I work with a lot of professional drummers, amateur drummers, and hundreds of drummers through my website, helping people like you move and drum pain-free. We have a whole platform where we teach exercises, fitness, and ergonomics, really everything to help you play forever. And if you're interested in being a part of that community, there's hundreds in there. You can try 7 days for free by clicking the link below. But there's one thing that always comes up is, well, what should I sit on? My general recommendation, which we're going to talk about shoes, my general recommendation for a drum throne for most people, not all, has been old reliable, the DW 9000 spindle with a lock mechanism. The best way to describe this and give you some framing is we could talk about spinal mechanics, but it's easier to think about shoes. If you are someone who's kind of in the health and fitness world and you just even recreationally are into it, barefoot mechanics is becoming a bigger thing. I mean, I wear these crazy toe shoes called Vibram 5 Fingers, and they're incredible, but they look weird. Here's what's really common knowledge right now, is when you think about a shoe like this is a common shoe, running shoe, squash shoe, if you will. Your foot has 30 bones and 55 sliding articulations. It's intended to move a very specific way. And so if you hinder the motion of your foot, it will modify how your ankle, your foot, and your entire body receives forces because that 55 sliding articulation system, your foot, can't absorb and interpret forces, and it can't adjust to terrain. It can't do all the things that your foot's supposed to do. So this is a common shoe. You can see if I try to bend it with all my strength, it takes a lot of work, and if I try to twist it like a foot, I can barely do this. So this shoe, just based off of the geometry of the bottom of the shoe, modifies how your foot operates. Now this is an important theme. The second part is this shoe inside here has a sole that is shaped in a particular way based off of the engineers of this shoe. And I'm sure they had a great reason for doing it. But the problem is when you make a shoe with curvature like an orthotic and you say this is a one-size-fits-all ASICS for any person, not a great idea. I mean, in most cases, when you have something that's one size fits all, it's not really good for anyone. And so this brings up generally the first problem with something like a tractor throne. Tractor thrones have concave and convex surfaces to try and accommodate to your thighs, and it doesn't work. I mean, if you think about the largest glute person you know, muscular or overweight, and then the tiniest glute person that you know, muscular or underweight, whatever you want to say, this shape here is going to be different for most people, so that's a big deal. Now there's a lot of great shoe companies that make wider toe boxes to accommodate for your toe mechanics. This shoe here is very flat and allows your body to move as it's intended to. This is a great shoe. This is the company Zero. It's a flat shoe that allows your anatomy inside of it to do what it's going to do. Now as always, there are always medical cases where someone needs an orthotic or a special system that works for their body. Now we're not talking about shoes. Talking about thrones. The DW 9000, the reason why I recommend it, one, is it is firm and flat, which means that no matter the shape of your anatomy, provided there's no pathology or major problems, it is flat enough that your anatomy can do what it's going to do. Your geometry can shift and move as it needs to. More importantly, whether you disagree with this, if you have a concave system, something like this, where it dips in and moves around, you need to make sure that the shape of your curves matches the shape of these curves. And if not, you have curvature and geometry that's pushing back into you that modifies how you move. So that's not always great. And in a second, I'm going to show you one simple test you can do besides all this word salad I'm saying to make sure you can see if your drum throne, your tractor throne, works well for you. Second, we also need to make sure I said this was firm, you have a stable base. If you were a golfer trying to swing a golf club as far and as hard as you can to hit a ball, as far as you can, you need to make sure your cleats are digging into the ground so you can have the power transfer from the ground all the way through your body to the ball. So this throne, with both the firmness on the top of the material and the locking mechanism below, the spindle mechanism, gives you all of that. So as a general recommendation, I think around the $300 price point, you can find them for $200 USD. Again, I'm not sponsored by DW. This is just the one that I like the most. This is a very good, reliable throne that most people can use. And if you think it's expensive, check out Facebook Marketplace, because you can always find these for $100 to $200 depending on where. In Canada, it's like $1,000 because everything's so expensive here. But anyway, so this Gibraltar throne is the oversized tractor throne. I don't know the code name at all, but it is the largest model they have. And I have to say that from a geometry perspective and a stability perspective, it is really good. It passes my test. It's very similar to the DW9000, and the curvature is large enough and broad enough that it does not modify my position. Check this out. Considering my size and weight, I'm 5'11" and I weigh 180 pounds. I do have some muscle in my leg, but I'm not overly muscular in my lower body. So when I'm sitting on here, this throne, the curvature has extra space on both sides, so it's not pushing into me, which is great. It does have a locking spindle mechanism, like I said before, which means that when I'm doing faster side-to-side motions, there's a lot of power transfer that goes from my throne to my body, and to make sure I don't have too much wiggle, which is always a big issue and can cause a lot of challenges in the back if you have too much motion there, which is one of the reasons why I don't recommend a hydraulic throne. We can talk more about that if you like. Leave a comment below if you want to talk more about hydraulic throne mechanisms and why they are not helpful for spine mechanics. Here's the big thing. If you've checked out any of my drum ergonomics course, the Drum Ergonomics Blueprint, or any of the stuff I have done with Modern Drummer, there are a few criteria that I think are important. One, you should have the height adjusted that you can lift your leg up off the ground and lift your leg up off the ground. This represents that you have extra active range of motion in your hip to make sure that your back is not taking it. You don't need that much range of motion to perform the bass drum, but this allows you to have carryover, so if you get tired and your hip starts to lose range of motion, your lower back will not take it via the lumbopelvic rhythm. Two, I also would encourage every drummer to be able to have a stable base, like I said with the golfer analogy. You should be able to lift your feet off the ground, my feet are off the ground right now, and hold yourself and not feel like you're gonna fall forward. The big thing with this throne that I really like is that most thrones have no material under the edge of the thigh, which means that when you lift your legs up, you feel like you're just gonna fall forward because there's not enough material supporting you in front of your body. So this Gibraltar throne, again, not sponsored. They have given me no prompts. These are just my opinions from understanding mechanics. And what I can experience is that when I'm sitting in the middle, lift my feet off the ground as I am now, my feet are off the ground, I have a ton of stability and I don't feel like I'm gonna fall forward, which is a very similar experience that I have with the DW9000. Now I still prefer personally the DW9000 drum throne spindle mechanism for myself. It just feels more stable, it feels really solid, but I will say that if I were gonna have a tractor throne that was gonna replace it, right now, this would be the one. I know Rock and Sock and a few other companies, I think Porter and Davis, make thrones that are similar to this. Would love to check those out. Please tell me below what you think, but this throne checks off a lot for me. It does not force my anatomy into a position that's uncomfortable. It is stable enough that when I lift my legs up, I don't fall forward, so I can maintain my center of mass over my base of support. And below, it has multiple locking mechanisms that really allow the spindle mechanism to lock and stay still, so if I'm doing faster motions, this throne is not gonna get in the way of my performance. So if you're looking for a throne, a tractor throne, and you wanna try something that's not gonna break the bank, but is really comfortable, this Gibraltar oversized tractor throne seems to be a great model. At the end of the day, when it comes to choosing a drum throne, it comes down to personal preference. But I will say the mechanical variables I talked about with stability, the geometry fitting your body, and making sure that it's rock solid so it doesn't move underneath you, those are very important. Now I wanted to show you one thing. When I showed you that big hip range of motion, saying that you need to have extra range of motion carryover, when you lift your leg up into hip flexion, you are in a position, based off of the mechanics of the muscles, where the muscles are extremely weak relative to the angle. With your femur in front of you, you have a huge moment arm or a lot of torque, and your muscles are at a relatively shortened position, which means that there's a lot of resistance and you can't come much higher. As you saw with me, I can only lift my leg to 110 degrees. When you get tired exercising, does your range of motion start to decrease? Most of us end an exercise set, if you exercise, because you can't bring your arm up as high. So it means that if you get fatigue in your hip or abdominal muscles that help to lift your leg, things like psoas and iliacus, you're going to see a range of motion drop, which means your hip can't go as high. You can look this up. There's a mechanism called the lumbo-pelvic rhythm, which means that when your hip can no longer move, your body's going to find range of motion at the lower back. This is where most exercisers who deadlift and squat too heavy hurt their back. This is where they run into injury because their hip can't do it and it transfers motion to their lower back. When you have a throne that decreases your stability, it's moving too much and it's too soft or doesn't fit your body, it causes more resistance in your body, meaning that you're not as stable, which means when there's more resistance in your body and you have to work harder and you're trying not to fall, it means that your muscles will get tired sooner. Maybe insidious because it might not be that much, only a 5-10% difference, but it is more resistance. The more resistance your muscles experience, the closer you get to fatigue. When you get closer to fatigue, that's when these compensations start to happen. So truthfully, a throne is a very important investment. So at the end of this, I think this Gibraltar tractor throne is a really cool option. I also think the DW9000 spindle is a very cool option, but please tell me the thrones that you like below. And quickly, if anyone asks about the thrones with the slit in the middle, I've already talked about it. You can look back through my videos. I think they're not worth the investment for many reasons. We can talk about that more another day, but go back and you can learn more. Anyway, this is Brandon from Drum Mechanics. Please subscribe, check out the videos, and please check out the Drum Forever Fitness program. It is changing so many lives. There's so many pros in there. It's absolutely incredible. Anyway, Gibraltar Oversized Throne, not bad. Check it out.